After my half-sister, Serena Hawke, transferred to Ashmere University, she bet me she could steal Damian Cross from me within a month. I dismissed her. From that day on, Damian became a permanent second-place finisher. The first time Serena beat him, he frowned and said, 1 point. I only lost by 1 point. After that, he calculated their scores every day. Over meals, he muttered. How did she solve it? Before bed, he stared at the rankings and said, I'll beat her next time. He praised her clear reasoning, quick reactions, and even her handwriting. In the laboratory, he chose the seat beside her and responded only to her during group discussions. When I asked him to see a movie with me, he waved me off. Serena sent me a new problem. I need to work it out. His phone was full of screenshots of her notes. Her class schedule hung beside his bed. Even in his sleep, he murmured about surpassing her. I watched the attention that had once belonged entirely to me shift toward my sister, inch by inch. Then my birthday came. Damian never showed up. I called 37 times. He rejected every call. When he finally answered, he lowered his voice. Rena asked me to watch the game with her. Wait a little longer. He hung up and Serena immediately sent me her location. The third-floor lounge at the arena. When I opened the door, her arms were wrapped around his neck. The thread I had held taut inside my chest for half a year finally snapped. All that remained was a deep, aching exhaustion that seeped into my bones. Damian reached toward me in panic. Rowan. I stepped back. Anyone who could be taken from me was no longer someone I wanted. Rowan's POV. The air went still. Damian instinctively moved Serena behind him and hurriedly straightened the collar their kiss had left twisted. My nails dug into my palms. Rowan, listen to me. He stepped forward, shielding Serena with his body. This was my fault. I lost control. Blame me, not Rena. I gave a quiet laugh. Rena? His throat worked as his gaze slipped away, guilt flashing in his eyes. Don't do this. Serena is, she's genuinely a good person. She's smart, hardworking, and has earned everything herself. Whatever happened between our parents wasn't her fault. Don't judge her for it. Judge her. I bit my lower lip until I tasted blood. Damian, have you forgotten what you said? 1 month earlier, on the day Serena transferred to Ashmere University, Damian had draped an arm around my shoulders and scoffed. Your father's illegitimate daughter? Incredible. Don't worry. I avoid people like that on sight. I won't even look at her. He had lowered his head and brushed his cheek against my hair. You're the only one in my heart. No one can take me from you. Later, when Serena tried to sit with us for a group assignment, Damian immediately gathered his books and moved to the back row. He wouldn't touch the papers she offered him. He pushed them back with the cap of his pen and whispered to me, Stay away from her. Trouble follows people like that. Back then, I had tightened my hold on his hand and felt completely secure. Only 30 days later, Serena had become a genuinely good person. My eyes burned. I tipped my head back and forced the tears down. Damian. I stared at him, my nails cutting deeper into my skin. Her mother had an affair with my father and helped destroy my mother. Now you're protecting her. Damian froze for a beat, then frowned. Rowan, stop being unreasonable. This is different. Different. A laugh escaped me even as the tears fell. I raised my hand and slapped Serena across the face. The crack rang through the room. Her head snapped to the side, but she said nothing. Damian's eyes reddened. He seized my wrist. Rowan Hawke, have you lost your mind? I twisted free and slapped him too. And what about you? You're helping the other woman's daughter humiliate me. He didn't dodge. Blood appeared at the corner of his mouth, and his gaze turned cold. He released me, stepped back, and laughed through clenched teeth. Rowan, your father is arranging a business marriage. He has only 2 daughters to offer. You and Serena. He wiped the blood from his lip and sneered. The man is 52. Marry him, and you'll spend your life trapped with someone old enough to be your father. Keep acting like this, and I'll cancel our engagement right now and marry Serena instead. The pressure around my wrist vanished. I looked at his reddened eyes, and every bit of strength drained from my body. Cancel it. His pupils tightened. What did you say? My mouth curved into a bitter smile. You think threatening to marry her will frighten me? I wiped my face. Wonderful. Now I don't have to end the engagement myself. His lips parted, but Serena lightly tugged his sleeve from behind him. He immediately turned his head and murmured, Don't be afraid. I backed up until the doorframe pressed into my shoulders. Protect her all you like from now on. Then I turned and left. As the door closed, I heard Serena say softly, My sister is angry. Damian answered, This isn't your fault. I handled it badly. I leaned against the hallway wall, and the tears finally fell. Late that night, I called my grandfather, Charles Watney, my mother's father. My voice was still hoarse when he answered, Grandpa, I'm coming to see you in a few days. He paused, then broke into a delighted laugh. Good. I'll have your room prepared again. His voice softened. Did someone hurt you? Come home, sweetheart. Whitmore Holdings will be yours one day. Your grandfather will stand behind you. I tightened my grip on the phone as tears returned, but warmth slowly spread through my chest. Someone was still waiting for me. Someone still treated me like a treasure. Okay, I'm coming home. I sniffed. And this time I'm staying. The next day, I returned to Hawke Estate to pack. When I opened my bedroom door, Serena was wearing my silk pajamas. She stepped aside. My closet stood open, with her dresses filling half the space. My clothes and textbooks had been dumped onto the floor and kicked against the wall like trash. I rushed in and tore through the pile with shaking hands. It wasn't there. I couldn't find it anywhere. The brown wooden frame held the only photograph I had with my mother. Where is the picture frame? I turned toward Serena, my voice raw. She leaned against the door and answered innocently, I don't know. The house staff cleaned the room. I reached for my phone. Emergency dispatch? I need to report. Pain shot through my wrist as the phone was snatched away. Damian twisted my arm behind my back, while using his other arm to move Serena behind him. Rowan, you've gone too far. His jaw tightened. Serena is a Hawke too. She has every right to live here. You failed to take care of your own things. Why are you creating a scene? He forced me down onto one knee, and it struck the sharp corner of a book. I searched the room with my eyes. The missing frame filled me with growing terror. Where is it? I looked up at him as tears struck the floor. Damian, where is the picture of my mother? He went still, and his grip loosened. He turned toward Serena. Where is the frame? It had a photograph of her mother. Why did you touch it? Serena's face went white. Her lips trembled. I didn't. When the staff cleaned. Who gave you permission to move that? Damian's voice dropped. They may have mistaken it for garbage. It went into the collection bin downstairs, so the truck has probably taken it to the county landfill by now. Serena clutched the hem of her shirt, her voice fading with every word. I scrambled upright and ran. I heard Damian's footsteps following me down the stairs. But the moment I reached the front entrance, Serena gasped behind us. Damian, my chest hurts. His footsteps stopped. I looked back once. Damian stood at the top of the stairs, his body angled toward me while his face turned toward Serena. She leaned against the wall, so pale that the pain didn't look entirely feigned. He clenched his hands, conflict filling the eyes I knew so well. Then he turned around and went to support Serena. I ran in the direction the garbage truck had taken. Cold air tore through my throat. No footsteps followed me. Fine. I would find it alone. My mother was waiting for me to bring her home. The stench of the county landfill sank into my bones. I searched for an entire day and night until my nails split and blisters opened across my palms. Just before dawn, I pulled the wooden frame from beneath a heap of broken glass. I held it against my chest and started back. Rain caught me halfway home, leaving mud and water streaming from my clothes. Damian was sitting on the living room couch. Relief crossed his face when he saw me. He stood. You're back. Don't come near me. I walked straight toward the stairs. Rowan. He followed me 2 steps, his voice urgent. Serena knows she made a mistake. She barely understood what was happening, and the staff threw the things away without asking her. She didn't know. Are you really going to punish her forever for something she didn't intend? I stopped. She felt so guilty she cried until morning. She even made you soup to apologize. Can't you at least? I turned, picked up the bowl, and poured it onto the floor in front of him. The dark liquid flowed over the toes of his shoes. Damian looked up sharply, his eyes bloodshot. When did you become like this, Rowan? Cold, cruel, and completely without compassion. This is my home. I gave him a faint smile. Damian, get out. He stared at me, lips moving soundlessly, as if I had struck him. A cane cut through the air behind me. A heavy blow landed across my back, and pain burst through my bones. My father's voice came from above me. Who gave you permission to speak to Damian that way? Get on your knees. I gritted my teeth and tried to rise, but a large hand pressed down on the back of my neck. My rain-soaked body shook with cold. I barely had enough strength left to form a fist. My father looked down at me. Look at yourself. Covered in mud and behaving like a lunatic. Is that how a Hawke heiress carries herself? Serena has 100 times more sense than you. I lay on the floor with the picture frame locked against my chest. You're just as tiresome as your dead mother. His voice was ice. No judgment. No restraint. All either of you knew how to do was cry and make scenes. The door opened. A woman slipped her arm through my father's and said gently, Vincent, don't be so hard on the child. Vivian Cole looked down at me with false apology. I could never compare to Rowan's mother. She came from an old family, while I'm nobody. Serena cannot compare to Rowan either. At least I understand that much. Damian frowned and suddenly said, Don't belittle yourself. Serena is intelligent, considerate, and knows how to behave. That's more than can be said for people who only know how to cause trouble. I lay there feeling as if a hand had crushed my heart. Once, when I broke my father's vase, Damian had stepped in front of me and said, I knocked it over. When Serena humiliated me in public, he had gripped my hand and challenged everyone around us. I'll protect her exactly as she is. None of you get a vote. When relatives mocked me to my face, he had shielded me and smiled lazily. I spoiled her. Take your complaints to me. Now he protected someone else and called me troublesome. Get up. My father gave the order coldly. Apologize to Serena. She is your sister. If you cannot show basic decency toward her, you do not deserve to call yourself a Hawke. I slowly lifted my head, a smile pulling at my mouth. You cheated before your wedding and conned your way into Mom's family. I met his eyes and spoke each word clearly. You were never worthy to stand beside her. The cane rose, and his open hand came down with it. My vision went black. Fire exploded across one side of my face, and my ears rang. Damian's hand lifted instinctively, then stopped before reaching me. This is my fault. I never should have come here. Serena suddenly burst into tears. I'm only an illegitimate daughter. Maybe I should die. I never belonged here, and everyone hates me. She turned and ran from the room. Damian immediately chased her. Rena, wait. Silence settled over the living room. My father struck the floor with his cane. Handle her according to the family rules. He looked at Vivian. Stay and supervise. Teach her that Hawke Estate is not a place where she can do whatever she wants. Vivian answered softly, of course, and sat beside the couch. By the time the 20th strike landed, I could no longer feel my legs. Blood from my back glued my clothes to my skin, and every movement tore the wounds open again. Fever blurred my thoughts into a thick haze. Through it, I saw my mother reaching toward me. I crawled an inch toward her. Behind me, Vivian said calmly, that's enough for today. She rose and smoothed her skirt. There will be more rules tomorrow. My thoughts dissolved, and I lost consciousness. When I opened my eyes, Damian was sitting beside the bed with a bowl in his hands. He scooped up a spoonful of medicine, blew on it, and held it to my lips. I stared at him, then swallowed without thinking. Bitterness spread across my tongue, followed by enough heat to tighten my throat. He sighed. If you had listened from the start, none of this would have happened. You brought all this pain on yourself. Don't worry about the marriage arrangement. I'll step in and settle it. I don't need you to. I turned my face away. Why do you have to be so stubborn? He set the bowl on the nightstand. Without me, who do you have left? I said nothing and stared at the ceiling. I was leaving tomorrow anyway. Grandpa would arrange everything. Rowan. Damian frowned. Are you still throwing a tantrum? I rolled onto my side and turned my back to him. The movement pulled at the wounds across my back, but the pain felt strangely cleansing. After a long silence, he said, I'm going to announce an engagement to Serena. My body went rigid. Don't misunderstand. She's being pushed into a business match too, with a man nearly 60. This is temporary. It will keep her safe. Everyone already knows you're my fiancé, so no one will dare touch you. Once I straighten this out in a few days, I'll come back for you. I slowly pushed myself upright against the bed frame. A scab split across my back, and I bit down against the pain. I turned to face him. My lips curved, but my eyes were cold. Damian, take your precious Rena and get out. He shot to his feet. Was I unclear? I forced out every word. Take her and leave. He stood there staring at me, emotions I could no longer read moving through his eyes. At last, he turned and walked away. Late that night, I stood at the window and watched Damian open a car door for Serena. My mouth twisted. Go. All of you. My bedroom door suddenly crashed open. Gordon Barrett loosened his tie and looked me over through narrowed eyes. I grabbed the brass fireplace poker beside the bed. Get out. He laughed and took a step closer. I swung at him, but my arm abruptly lost its strength. My vision blurred, and my thoughts felt packed with cotton. The medicine Damian had fed me. Something had been in it. Don't waste your energy. Gordon approached at an easy pace and reached for my face. Damian doesn't want you, and your father promised you to me. They agreed to it together. Save your strength. Behave, and you'll live comfortably as my wife. Hatred exploded through my bones. I bit my tongue until the taste of blood sharpened my mind. When he lunged, I drove my knee between his legs. As he folded over, I snatched the lighter that had fallen from his pocket. The curtains caught immediately. Gordon cursed while clutching himself. I spun and ran through the open door. The house manager charged upstairs toward the fire, and I slipped past him into the night. I called my grandfather, my voice barely more than a rasp. Grandpa, I'm behind Hawke Estate. Hold on, sweetheart. I'm sending someone now. I collapsed in the grass as consciousness began slipping away. Through my blurred vision, I saw one figure running toward me against the light. The figure running through the tall grass was not Damian. It was Julian Vance, my grandfather's chief of security and right-hand man. I recognized the broad silhouette against the floodlights, the dark trench coat, whipping around his knees as he tore through the gloom. Miss Rowan. His voice was a low, urgent roar. Before my knees buckled into the damp earth, His heavy arms caught me. He lifted me cleanly off the ground, wrapping his wool coat around my mud-caked, bruised body. Behind us, thick black smoke billowed into the night sky from the second-story windows of Hawke Estate. Sirens wailed in the distance there, crimson lights painting the burning facade in blood. Is the photograph safe? I rasped, my throat raw from smoke and the drug burning through my veins. Julian looked down, his sharp, scarred face tightening as he saw the wooden frame clutched against my ribs like a sacred relic. It's safe, Miss Rowan. Your grandfather is waiting in the armored sedan down the road. Don't let them bring me back. I whimpered, my fingers tightening on his sleeve. Nobody touches a Watney, Julian said, his voice flat, dark, and absolute. Not ever again. He carried me down the wooded slope, where a convoy of 3 sleek black sedans stood waiting with their engines idling. The rear door of the center vehicle swung open. My grandfather, Charles Watney, sat in the leather interior. When he saw my bloodied clothes, the dark purple handprint on my face, and my mud-splattered hair, the breath left his lungs in a ragged gasp. My sweet girl, Charles whispered. He pulled me into the back seat, gathering me into his arms despite the soot and mud staining his bespoke suit. He pressed his hand against the back of my head, holding me tight as I began to shake uncontrollably. Driver, move, Charles ordered. His voice didn't rise, but the atmosphere inside the car turned arctic. Call Dr. Harrison. Have the private wing at St. Jude's cleared immediately. And tell our legal counsel to freeze every joint account associated with the Hawke family by dawn. Grandpa, I murmured, the drug heavy behind my eyelids. Damian, he put something in the medicine. Charles's hand stilled against my hair. His eyes, silvered with age but sharp as shattered flint, fixed on the burning mansion in the rearview mirror. Damian Cross made his choice, Charles whispered, his thumb gently wiping a streak of dried blood from my temple. And tonight the Cross family begins to pay for it. An hour later, 3 fire engines pulled into the driveway of Hawke Estate. Damian stood in the courtyard, holding Serena by her elbow. She was wrapped in his jacket, shivering dramatically while a paramedic examined her for smoke inhalation. Gordon Barrett stumbled out of the front entrance, his shirt torn, his groin swollen and bruised, swearing loudly as firefighters dragged hose lines through the front foyer. Where is she? Damian demanded, grabbing the house manager by his collar. Where is Rowan? Mr. Cross, the fire started in Miss Rowan's bedroom, the manager stammered, pale with terror. The curtains were torched. We searched the room, she wasn't inside. But the window was open, and there was blood on the sill. Damian's chest tightened. He shoved the manager aside and rushed toward the back lawn, ignoring the firefighters shouting behind him. Rowan, he called out into the dark, wet grass. Rowan. He expected her to be hiding in the rose garden, weeping, waiting for him to come comfort her after her childish outburst. He expected to find her stubborn, angry, and waiting for his reprimand. Instead, his shoe struck something hard in the grass. Damian knelt down. In the beam of his flashlight lay a silver necklace, the very necklace he had given her for her 18th birthday, carved with their initials. The chain was snapped in half. Beside it lay a pool of dark, fresh blood where she had collapsed. Damian. Serena's soft voice came from behind him as she stepped into the grass, shivering. Is she playing another trick? Setting fire to the house just to get your attention? Damian didn't answer. He picked up the broken necklace. The silver was cold against his palm. She wouldn't burn her mother's picture, Damian murmured, his voice trembling slightly. She spent 24 hours in the landfill for that picture. She probably took it with her, Serena scoffed quietly, though her eyes glinted with satisfaction as she looked at the scorched mansion. She's just trying to make us feel guilty, Damian. You know how dramatic she is. She'll come crawling back to school on Monday when her money runs out. Damian stared at the broken chain. A strange, suffocating cold settled deep in his stomach, but he forced himself to stand up and nod. You're right, Damian muttered, forcing a stiff smile as he turned to Serena. She has nowhere else to go. Her father blocked her allowances yesterday. She'll be back. I spent 3 days in the private wing of St. Jude's Hospital. Dr. Harrison flushed the sedative from my system and treated the severe lacerations across my back. 22 whip marks from my father's cane had torn into my skin, leaving deep purple scabs. The fever broke on the second night. When I finally sat up in bed, my grandfather sat by the window reading through a stack of leather-bound legal folders. The police tried to file an arson report against you on Vincent Hawke's behalf, Charles said, not looking up from his papers. Julian took care of it. Gordon Barrett signed a non-disclosure agreement and dropped all claims after. Julian showed him the security footage of him entering your room with a master. I touched the bandage on my neck. And father? Vincent is currently begging his board of directors for a bailout, Charles said, his voice dripping with disgust. He thought marrying you off to Barrett would secure a $50 million credit line. Now that Barrett has fled back to the capital to avoid an attempted assault charge, Hawke Enterprises is bleeding $2 million a day. Charles laid the folders on my lap. These are the deeds to Whitmore Holdings, he said softly. 49% belong to your mother. The moment she passed, it transferred into a trust that Vincent managed until your 22nd birthday, which was 3 days ago. I looked at the gold-embossed seal. He hid it from me, I whispered. He tried, Charles replied, standing up and pressing a soft kiss to my forehead. He thought you were weak, Rowan. He thought that by breaking your spirit and pairing you with Damian Cross, you would never look into your mother's legacy. But you are my daughter's child. You are a Watney. I looked down at my hands. The split nails were bandaged, the blisters healing. The girl who had wept in the rain, begging for a boy's fleeting warmth, had died in the flames of Hawke Estate. Grandpa, I said, my voice steady and clear for the first time in 6 months. I want to return to Ashmere University. Charles raised an eyebrow. Are you sure? You don't need that place anymore. You can step directly into the vice chair position at Whitmore. I have business to finish, I answered softly, holding my mother's restored photograph against my chest. Serena bet me she could take everything from me in a month. It's time to show her what happens when she keeps what isn't hers. On Monday morning, Ashmere University was buzzing. Rumors about the fire at Hawke Estate had spread like wildfire. Everyone knew Rowan Hawke had disappeared, and Serena Hawke was now permanently walking side by side with Damian Cross. In the central laboratory, Damian sat in his usual row. Beside him, Serena was organizing her color-coded notes, laughing softly as she pointed out a complex organic chemistry problem. Damian, Serena murmured, leaning close enough that her perfume drifted over his shoulder. Look at this equation. Is my deduction clearer than the professor's? Damian looked at the page. The handwriting was neat, identical to the notes he had saved on his phone. Yet, for some reason, his eyes kept drifting toward the empty seat in the front row, the seat Rowan used to occupy. Usually, Rowan would sit there, quietly placing a thermos of hot tea on his desk. Before class started, she would never brag about her scores, even though she had consistently held the top rank in the department before Serena arrived. Damian. Serena nudged his arm, pouting. Are you listening to me? Yeah, Damian muttered, rubbing his temples. It's good, Rena. Very clear. She's probably starving in some cheap motel, Serena whispered, her voice laced with mock pity. It's been 4 days. Father said her bank cards are completely frozen. If she comes back and apologizes to us, do you think we should let her live in the guest house? Damian frowned, an uncomfortable prickle running down his neck. Serena, that's enough. The heavy oak doors of the lecture hall swung open. The room fell completely silent. A tall man in a bespoke black suit stepped inside, holding the door open. Behind him walked a woman clad in a tailored cream-colored trouser set, a dark emerald silk shirt beneath it, and her hair pulled into a sleek, high ponytail. Her face was pale, but her lips were painted a bold, uncompromising crimson. Gold earrings caught the morning light as she walked down the steps with absolute, effortless grace. It was Rowan. Damian froze. The pen in his hand slipped, rattling across the desk and falling to the floor. Serena's smile vanished instantly. Rowan didn't look tired. She didn't look broken. She looked like royalty, stepping into a room full of commoners. She walked straight past Damian and Serena without a single glance, taking her place in the center of the front row. Julian Vance stepped up behind her, placing a leather briefcase on her desk before taking a protective stance by the door. Rowan? Damian blurted out, standing up so fast his chair screeched against the floorboards. The entire lecture hall turned to look at him. Rowan casually opened her tablet, her fingers gliding across the screen. She didn't turn her head. She didn't acknowledge his voice. She treated him exactly like air. Damian's jaw tightened as the whispers around the lecture hall swelled. Is that Rowan? She looks completely different. Look at her outfit, that's custom tailored from the Capitol. And who is that guy standing by the door? I thought people said she ran away because she burned her house down. Damian took a step toward her front row desk. Rowan, where have you been for? For days. Rowan swiped a page on her tablet, her tone light and detached as she spoke to the lecturer who had just walked in. Professor Vance, can we begin? My time is limited today. Professor Vance, Julian's cousin and one of the top academic minds imported by the university, nodded respectfully. Of course, Miss Watney. Miss Watney. The name echoed through the quiet room like a physical slap. Damian's eyes widened. Watney. Rowan, what are you playing at? Your last name is Hawke. Rowan finally turned her head, her dark eyes landing on Damian. There was no pain in her gaze, no anger, no lingering warmth. It was the look one gave a stranger on the street, cold, distant, and utterly indifferent. My mother was Evelyn Watney, she said smoothly, her voice carrying cleanly across the silent hall. I have officially renounced the Hawke surname as of 8 o'clock this morning. If you have questions about my legal identity, contact my lawyers. Serena stood up beside Damian, her face contorted in a mixture of anger and anxiety. Rowan, how could you abandon father like that? Hawke Enterprises is facing a financial crisis, and you're changing your name? You selfish. Miss Hawke, Rowan interrupted, her eyes shifting to Serena with terrifying. You are currently wearing my tailored silk blouse from my estate closet. Should I call the campus police to report a theft, or would you prefer to strip it off right here? Serena's blood ran cold. Her hand instinctively flew to the collar of the blouse she had taken from Rowan's room 2 days ago. I didn't. Sit down, Professor Vance ordered sternly, slamming his textbook onto the podium. Both of you. This is a lecture hall, not a family feud. Damian stood frozen for 3 long seconds before slowly sinking back into his seat. His eyes remained locked on Rowan's back throughout the entire 2-hour class. Something was terribly wrong. For 7 years, Rowan had looked at him with warmth, patience, and devotion. Whenever he frowned, she smoothed his brow. Whenever he was arrogant, she laughed softly and accommodated his pride. He had been entirely certain that no matter how far he pushed her, no matter how much he used Serena to test her patience, Rowan would always be sitting in her seat, waiting for him. Now, sitting just 3 rows ahead of him, she felt as distant as a star in another galaxy. When the lecture ended, Rowan gathered her tablet and stood up. Damian immediately shoved his books aside and intercepted her in the aisle, blocking her path. Rowan, we need to talk. Now. Julian Vance stepped forward instantly, his towering 6'2" frame looming over Damian like a dark shadow. Step back, Mr. Cross. Damian glared at Julian, his pride flare up. Get out of my way. This is between me and my fiancé. Ex-fiancé, Rowan corrected smoothly, stepping around Julian. She met Damian's eyes, her crimson lips curving into a faint, mocking smile. Did you forget, Damian? 4 days ago, you told me that if I didn't apologize to Serena, you would cancel our engagement and marry her instead. I told you to cancel it. Damian's heart did a violent twist. I said that because you were out of control. I was trying to protect Serena from your temper. And you succeeded, Rowan said softly. You protected her. You gave her my room, my clothes, my place beside you, and my mother's photograph in the landfill. You did a wonderful job, Damian. She leaned in slightly, her voice dropping to a whisper that only he could hear. So why are you standing in my way now? Go be her hero. You two deserve each other. She brushed past him. The light scent of jasmine, her mother's favorite perfume, lingered in the air, fading as her heels clicked rhythmically down the corridor. Damian reached out to catch her arm, but Julian's heavy hand gripped his wrist, stopping him in his tracks with crushing force. Touch her again, Julian warned, his voice low and lethal. And I will personally break every finger on that hand. Julian released him and followed Rowan out. Damian stood alone in the hallway, his fingers trembling, the broken silver necklace sitting like a stone in his pocket. Behind him, Serena ran up and grabbed his arm. Damian, did you see how arrogant she was? She's just bluffing. She thinks because she reconnected with the Watney family, she can look down on us. Damian shoved her hand off his arm with unprecedented sharpness. Damian. Serena stumbled back, shock filling her face. Shut up, Serena, Damian snapped, his face pale, his breath ragged. Just shut up. That evening, the grand ballroom of the Imperial Hotel hosted the annual Ashmere Innovation Summit, a gathering of the city's top corporate leaders, academic benefactors, and political elites. Vincent Hawke stood in the center of the hall, wearing a sharp tux, holding a champagne glass with a tight, strained smile. Beside him, Vivian Cole wore a diamond necklace that had clearly been purchased recently, attempting to mingle with the wives of local bankers. Vincent, Vivian whispered, her voice nervous as she looked around. Are you sure the Watney family won't intervene tonight? If Charles Watney shows up. Charles Watney is an old ghost, Vincent sneered through gritted teeth though. Sweat glistened on his forehead. He hasn't stepped into the business circle for 5 years. Besides, Rowan has no corporate experience. She's just a stubborn girl throwing a tantrum. Once the Cross family announces their joint investment with Hawke Enterprises tonight, the banks will fall back in line. Just then, Damian and Serena walked into the ballroom. Serena wore a sweeping burgundy gown, her hair styled professionally, clinging tightly to Damian's arm. Damian looked handsome, but his expression was distant. his eyes constantly scanning the entrance. Look everyone, Vincent announced loudly, raising his glass to a group of nearby investors. My daughter Serena and her fiancé, Damian Cross. The future of our two families. A few people clapped politely, but the atmosphere felt strangely muted. Suddenly, the heavy double doors at the front of the ballroom opened. The master of ceremonies stepped up to the microphone, his voice echoing through the massive hall. Presenting the vice chair of Whitmore Holdings, Miss Rowan Watney, accompanied by Chairman Charles Watney. A collective gasp swept through the room. Vincent's champagne glass nearly slipped from his hand. Charles Watney walked into the hall, clad in an immaculate dark suit, his silver hair brushed back, walking with an iron cane. Beside him walked Rowan. She wore a custom-designed silk floor-length gown of midnight blue, dusted with microscopic silver stars that caught every light in the chandelier. Around her, neck sat a platinum choker set with a massive, teardrop-cut blue sapphire, the famous Evelyn's tear, a legendary piece from the Watney family vault that had been missing from public sight for 20 years. She looked regal, untouchable, and devastatingly beautiful. The entire ballroom erupted into hushed excitement. Corporate leaders who had ignored Vincent Hawke all evening immediately abandoned him, rushing forward to greet Charles Watney and his granddaughter. Mr. Watney, it's been too long. Miss Watney, you look absolute stunning. Tonight, we heard Whitmore Holdings is restructuring its tech portfolio. Rowan smiled politely, handling the greetings with flawless grace, her posture poised and effortless. Damian stood frozen near the buffet table, staring at her. The sapphire on her neck caught the light, illuminating her pale skin. He remembered seeing a drawing of that exact necklace in her notebook 3 years ago. Back then, she had whispered to him, "My mom said the sapphire represents eternal loyalty. One day, I want to wear it when I marry you." Now she was wearing it. But she was standing 30 feet away from him, surrounded by powerful men offering her business deals, treating her like a queen. "Father." Serena whimpered, clutching Vincent's arm as her face went pale with envy. Why? Why is she wearing the Evelyn sapphire? Mother said that was supposed to be left in the Hawke family vault. Shut your mouth, Vincent hissed under his breath, his knuckles turning white around his glass. Your mother lied to me. Evelyn transferred the vault deeds to the Watney Trust before she died. Rowan walked slowly through the crowd, her gaze drifting casually across the room until it landed on Vincent, Vivian, Serena, and Damian. She lifted her glass, giving them a faint, icy nod. Then she turned to the stage, taking the microphone as the room settled into silence. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Rowan's voice rang out melodic yet ringing with absolute authority. As Vice Chair of Whitmore Holdings, I am pleased to announce our strategic acquisition of Ashmere University's Central Research Laboratory. She paused, her dark eyes lingering on Serena and Damian. Moving forward, Whitmore Holdings will fully fund all advanced research projects. However, she added, her lips curving into a sharp, lethal smile, we are implementing a strict integrity audit. Any student or researcher who has engaged in academic plagiarism, theft of research notes, or corporate espionage will be permanently removed from the program and blacklisted from all Whitmore subsidiaries. Serena's face drained of every drop of color. Her knees buckled and she grabbed the edge of a table to keep from falling. Rowan raised her glass high under the crystal lights. To new beginnings. And to clearing out the trash. The announcement sent shockwaves through the ballroom. Serena stood frozen, her breath coming in shallow gasps. She knew exactly what Rowan meant by academic plagiarism. Over the past month, every single advanced problem Serena had solved to beat Damian, every brilliant insight, every complex reaction mechanism, had come from a blue leather notebook she had stolen from Rowan's desk on the day she transferred to Ashmere. Rowan had spent 3 years compiling her mother's unpublished biochemical research in that book. Serena had merely copied the solutions word for word, presenting them as her own. Damian, Serena whispered, grabbing his arm frantically. Damian, we have to leave. I don't feel well. Damian didn't move. He stared at Rowan on the stage, the puzzle pieces finally connecting in his mind with devastating clarity. 1 point. I only lost by 1 point. How did she solve it? Her clear reasoning. Her quick reactions. He remembered how Rowan used to sit beside him, quietly pointing out errors in his calculations, her logic flawless and deep. He had assumed she was just diligent. He had assumed Serena was the true genius, because Serena was flashy, vocal, and constantly showing off her notes. He had abandoned a true diamond to chase a cheap piece of painted glass. Serena, Damian's voice dropped, cold and hollow. The notes you showed me, the ones on my phone, were those yours? Serena's eyes darted around in panic. Of course they were mine. Damian, how could you doubt me? Rowan is just trying to frame me because she's jealous. Show me your research rough draft, Damian demanded, turning to face her, his eyes bloodshot. Right now. Show me how you derived the third-stage synthesis equation from last week's exam. Serena backed away, her lips trembling. I don't have it on me. You couldn't solve it, could you? Damian laughed, a dark, self-deprecating laugh that sounded like dry leaves scraping across concrete. I spent a month obsessing over you. I neglected Rowan, ignored her birthday, let her be hurt by her family, all because I thought you were brilliant. He took a step closer to her, his jaw clenching so hard a vein bulged on his temple. You stole her book. Damian, no. Listen to me. Serena cried out, but it was too late. Damian turned away from her and strode purposefully toward the front of the hall, where Rowan was speaking with 3 major bank presidents. Rowan, Damian called out, ignoring the security guard stepping forward. Rowan, please. Give me 2 minutes. Charles Watney raised his cane slightly, signaling the guards to pause. Looked at Damian with a mixture of pity and absolute disdain. Rowan turned around slowly, swirling the champagne in her glass. Mr. Cross. Do you have a business proposal for Whitmore Holdings? If not, my secretary handles personal inquiries. I know, Damian rasped, his voice breaking in front of the entire room. I know. About the notes. I know she stole your research. I was blind, Rowan. I was a complete fool. A murmur rippled through the gathered elites. Vincent Hawke looked like he was about to faint, while Vivian Cole tried to shrink into the shadows. I thought she was better than you, Damian whispered, tears finally streaming down his handsome face, destroying every ounce of his usual arrogance. I thought I was trying to surpass a rival, but it was always you. It was always your work. He took a step forward, reaching out with a trembling hand toward her. Rowan, I made a terrible mistake. I swear to you, I never loved her. It was just an obsession with winning. I only ever loved you. Please come home. Let me fix this. The room fell completely silent. Everyone waited for Rowan's response. Rowan looked at him. She looked at his tears, his ruined pride, and the desperate love flashing in his eyes. The same love he had withheld from her on her birthday while he held Serena in the third-floor lounge. She lifted her glass, took a slow, elegant sip and smiled. Damian, she said, her voice smooth and sweet as honey, yet sharp enough to sever steel. When a dog strays to eat from the trash bin, you don't clean it. Often bring it back into the house. A few sharp gasps sounded in the crowd. Someone snickered softly in the back. Ro, you didn't make a mistake, Rowan continued, her eyes cold as winter frost. You showed me who you truly were when the lights were off. You are a man who can be stolen by a thief, and a thief's garbage belongs together. She turned her back on him, raising her glass toward the bank presidents. Now, gentlemen, where were we regarding the loan recalls for Hawke Enterprises? Damian stood frozen in the center of the ballroom, as if he had been turned to stone. Behind him, Julian Vance stepped forward, placing a heavy hand on his shoulder and shoving him firmly toward the exit. The show is over, Mr. Cross, Julian murmured coldly. Get out. The collapse of Hawke Enterprises happened with terrifying speed. By noon the following day, Whitmore Holdings formally called in the $45 million debt guaranteed by Evelyn Watney's trust. Simultaneously, the city's major banks froze all liquidity to Hawke Enterprises. Vincent Hawke arrived at his office to find federal auditors sealing his door. His private luxury cars were repossessed, the Hawke estate mansion was placed under court auction, and Vivian Cole was caught at the international airport, trying to board a flight to Switzerland with $3 million in stolen corporate funds. She was arrested at the gate. When Vincent returned to his rented apartment, weeping and ruined, he found Serena packing her bags. Where are you going? Vincent roared, grabbing her arm. Your mother is in detention. The family is ruined. Where are you going? Serena shoved him away with vicious strength. I'm going to Damian. He's rich. His family won't let him starve. Damian. Vincent laughed hysterically. You stupid girl. The Cross family canceled their engagement with you 3 hours ago. Their board stripped Damian of his position in the family firm because of the scandal at the summit. Serena froze, her face turning gray. What? Rowan destroyed us all. Vincent screamed, collapsing onto the floor, clutching his head. And you were the bait that dragged us into the pit. That same afternoon, Serena ran to the Cross family estate. The heavy iron gates were locked tight. Rain began to fall, soaking her clothes, plastering her hair to her face, exactly as it had happened to Rowan 2 weeks prior. Damian. Serena screamed, banging her fists against the iron bars. Damian. Open the door. It's Serena. I love you. Please help me. After 30 minutes, the side gate opened. Damian walked out wearing a simple black coat, He held no umbrella. His eyes were hollow, bloodshot, and completely devoid of life. Damian. Serena threw herself at him, trying to wrap her arms around his neck. Damian, they lied to you. Rowan set us up. We can still be together. Damian caught her wrists. He didn't use gentle force. He twisted her arms back with terrifying coldness, shoving her away so hard she crashed into the muddy pavement. Damian. Serena whimpered, clutching her scraped elbows. You stole her notes, Damian said, his voice flat, dead, and empty. You made me hit her. You made me throw her mother's picture in the trash. I did it for you, Serena cried, tears mixing with rainwater on her face. Because I loved you. She didn't love you like I do. She loved me enough to stay by my side for 7 years when I had nothing. Damian whispered, looking down at his own hands, the hands that had once held Rowan, the hands that had fed her drugged medicine, the hands that had shattered her trust forever. And you were just a parasite looking for a host. He reached into his pocket, pulled out the brown wooden picture frame he had dug out of the county landfill himself 3 days ago, restored, cleaned, but forever, cracked across the glass, and threw it into the mud beside her. Get out of my sight, Damian said, turning his back on her. If I ever see your face again, I'll ensure you spend the rest of your life in prison for theft. He walked back into the estate, the heavy iron gates slamming shut behind him, with a final, deafening clang. Serena lay in the mud, weeping hysterically, clutching the cracked picture frame, completely alone in the pouring rain. 1 year later, the spring sun shone brightly over the grand auditorium of the National Science Academy. Rowan Watney stood at the center podium, wearing a white laboratory coat over a sleek black dress. The audience, filled with world-renowned scientists, university presidents, and global media, erupted into standing ovations as she was presented with the International Youth Innovation Gold Medal. Beside the stage, Charles Watney sat in his wheelchair, crying tears of quiet pride, holding Julian Vance's hand. Thank you. Rowan's voice echoed clearly through the hall, confident, radiant, and inspiring. This research was dedicated to my mother, Evelyn Watney. It taught me that true strength isn't about holding on to what breaks you. It's about having the courage to walk away and build your own sky. The applause thundered through the auditorium. Far in the back row, sitting in the shadows of the highest balcony, a man sat alone. Damian Cross wore a worn, faded coat. He had lost his former polish, his hair unkempt, his face thin and pale. He worked now as a low-level lab assistant in a remote northern province, earning a meager salary, far away from the elite circles he had once dominated. He watched Rowan on the stage, glorious, untouchable, beaming under the bright lights like a sun that had escaped the dark. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the small silver initial charm he had kept for 2 years. He remembered her voice from a lifetime ago. Damian, I'll always stand behind you. He closed his eyes as a single tear rolled down his cheek. She had stood behind him, but he had turned around, walked into the shadows, and lost the only light that had ever truly belonged to him. Rowan lifted her trophy high under the stage lights, her eyes looking forward, never once looking back into the dark. She was free. She was unbroken. And her story was just beginning.